He was once the pride of Riverdale City, a German shepherd whose courage on the front lines had saved more lives than anyone could count. But when his handler fell in a blast that ripped through the desert night, the hero turned into a storm of teeth and grief. The K9 they once saluted became the dog everyone feared. Uncontrollable, broken, untouchable. Yet one afternoon, a small hand would reach through that darkness. Mila Mitchell, a 6-year-old black girl with soft curly hair and eyes that caught light like polished amber, would whisper, "It's okay, you're not bad." That was the moment everything changed for Rex and for the world that would soon know his name. Before we start, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And hey, we love seeing how far our stories travel. So drop your country in the comments below. Sirens wailed in the distance as the morning shift began inside Riverdale Precinct. A metal clang cut through the hum of chatter. Then came the bark. It rattled coffee cups, froze conversation, and sent every officer's gaze toward a reinforced holding wing. Behind the bars, Rex erupted again, the sound thick with fury and heartbreak. No one dared move. The officers whispered, "That's him, the one from the military unit. The untouchable." Rex lunged once, chain snapping tight. The muzzle glinted under fluorescent light, and the beast everyone feared pressed forward until his nose hit steel. Those who'd never seen him before stepped back instinctively. Those who had remembered the scars he'd left. Captain Rivera, a tall man with a graying beard and a stare that could silence a room, folded his arms. "He was a hero once," he said quietly. "Now he's a ticking clock." Rex paced inside the kennel, claws scraping concrete, a rhythm that sounded like countdown seconds. His golden eyes caught every movement, every shadow, always searching for someone who would never return. When thunder rolled outside, he flinched, then growled, deep and hollow. Grief still spoke through every breath. Across the corridor, Officer Wesley Gray studied him through reinforced glass. Wesley had trained dozens of K9s, but none carried ghosts like this one. The file in his hand read, like a list of failures, multiple transfers, untrainable, violent, terminated partners. He set it down, staring instead at the dog behind the glass. "You're not angry," he murmured. "You're hurt." Rex's head turned toward the voice. Their eyes met, and for half a heartbeat, something flickered. Recognition. Maybe. Then it vanished. Wesley felt all the same. The animal wasn't fighting them. He was fighting memory. That evening, rain slid down the station windows, streaking the light into gray rivers. Rex lay in his corner, ears twitching at distant thunder. When the lightning flashed, his muscles locked, breath stuttered, and the war replayed in his mind. Sand, fire, a command he could never unhear, then silence. He whined softly, the sound lost beneath the rain. Outside the cage, Wesley watched. "You don't need to fight anymore, soldier," he whispered. "You just need someone to remind you how to live." He didn't know that someone was already on her way. Morning broke over Riverdale like glass catching light. Officers shuffled paperwork, poured bitter coffee, joked about long shifts. Then the front doors opened, and Fate walked in wearing sneakers. A woman in a faded denim jacket held the hand of a small black girl in a pink dress. The child's curls bounced as she stepped forward, her gaze alive with wonder. The receptionist smiled. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "Yes," the woman said softly. "I'm Savannah Mitchell. My husband served here before he passed. I wanted to show my daughter where her father worked." The officer nodded, voice lowering with respect. "Of course, Mrs. Mitchell." While the adult spoke, the little girl tugged free. Down the hallway came the muffled echo of barking, raw, aching alive. She turned toward it, curiosity shining through fear. "Mommy," she whispered, "are there dogs here?" Savannah smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart. Police dogs. But we can't go in there, okay?" Mila nodded, but her eyes never left that hallway. Something in the sound pulled her like a melody only she could hear. At that same moment, deep inside the K9 wing, Rex lifted his head. His nose flared. Through steel, rain, and distance, he caught a scent. Soft, human, familiar. He rose, tail rigid, muscles trembling. A whine escaped before he could stop it. Wesley glanced up from his clipboard. "What is it, boy?" But Rex wasn't listening. He faced the door, staring at the narrow strip of glass, and beyond it, a small figure in pink standing on tiptoe to see inside. The world went silent. Every growl, every memory, every ounce of pain paused. For the first time in years, Rex didn't feel anger. He felt recognition, and something dangerously close to hope. And that was the moment Riverdale's most feared K-9 began to change, though no one knew it yet. The corridor returned to noise, but inside the K-9 windy air felt changed, like a storm remembering how to become rain. Rex stood where he was, head tilted toward the door where the little girl had been. No growl, no lunge, just a trembling breath, as if a word he used to know had almost found its way back. "Officer!" Wesley Gray didn't write that in his report. He just stared and listened, to the silence, to the dog not breaking it. "What did you recognize, buddy?" he whispered. Rex blinked slowly. The chain at his collar barely moved. Files can lie by telling only the truth. Wesley opened Rex's again anyway. Transfers, incident logs, red stamped warnings. Between the lines, he heard other things. Sandstorms, convoy radios crackling, a handler's laugh that could steady a dog at 50 meters. Sergeant Declan Reed. They'd called Rex a weapon, then a miracle, then a problem. But before those words, there had been one older than any metal. Partner. Wesley closed the folder and switched on the observation mic, letting his voice carry soft and even. "Rexio." A flinch, not a snap. The dog took one step, not obedience exactly, more like muscle memory waking up. Wesley tried again. "Sit." Rex hovered between fight and follow, then lowered his haunches an inch and froze, as if command had reached him but grief wouldn't let it through. Wesley didn't push. He backed off, palms open. Good. That's enough for today. Behind him, the glass reflected his face and the precinct stout. Word travels in the station faster than sirens. By noon, everyone had an opinion. Terminate before he hurt somebody. The kid was a fluke. Next time we won't be lucky. Or maybe she was a fluke at all. Captain Rivera kept his voice low and edged with responsibility. "We have 6 days to justify keeping him. No hero discounts, Gray." Wesley nodded. He felt the weight of that clock settle between his ribs. Night stretched long. Rain ticked against metal. Rex paced a slow circle, then lay down, head on pause, watching the red dot of the corridor camera like it could blink first. When thunder rolled, the pass uncoiled. It wasn't a kennel anymore. It was a road of baked clay and broken light. Declan's glove on his ruff. "Steady, boy, good boy." A flash too bright to be lightning. Heat, the sound that follows explosions when sound stops being sound. Rex jolted upright, teeth gritting against the muzzle he wasn't wearing anymore. In memory, he was free and trapped at once. A thin, involuntary whine leaked into the present. From the booth, Wesley heard it and shut off the fluorescent hum of the flick, letting the room dim to a calmer hum. "You're not back there," he said softly. "You're here." The dog's breathing settled by degrees. Morning brought the Mitchells again. Savannah signing the visitor log with a careful hand. Mila standing on tiptoe to find the hallway she'd memorized. Protocol said no entry. Compassion said let them look. Wesley met them halfway, not as a cop first, but as someone who had watched animals choose us when we do not deserve them. "From here," he told Savannah, guiding them to the observation glass. "No closer." Mila pressed her palms to the glass and left 2 perfect prints that sparkled in the light. Rex lifted his head before anyone spoke. The tail didn't wag. Hope is shy when it's new. But the eyes changed. He rose and stepped toward the door, stopping exactly where the steel bars began, not an inch further. Savannah's breath caught. He knows her. Wesley swallowed what he wanted to say. He needs her, and said the thing a handler is allowed to say. He's choosing not to fear for her. Small changes look like nothing until they look like momentum. Wesley tried 1 command each day, never 2. "Sit. Stay. Watch me." Sometimes Rex answered. Sometimes the ghost of the desert answered instead. Either way, he didn't lunge. Either way, he looked for the girl. Mila drew pictures with crayons in the lobby. Circles that became dogs, loops that became leashes, 3 stick figures beneath a sun as big as a badge. Wesley taped one near the kennel door at adult height, where only a dog would notice. Rex noticed. He stared at it the way soldiers stare at home. Not everyone was convinced. Officer Powell counted incidents on her fingers. Officer Hughes checked the tranquilizer twice a shift and never joked about it. Rivera watched the clock. For days, he said. Show me something I can defend. Wesley showed him the cameras. At 10:13 a.m., Mila's footsteps echoed. Rex stood, not snapping, not retreating, standing. At 10:14, she said nothing at all. She just breathed against the glass. At 10 hours, 14 minutes, and 12 seconds, the dog sat, uncommanded, like he'd remember a rule older than training. Be small so the small are not afraid. Rivera didn't smile, but the line of his jaw softened. Document it. Carefully. That evening, when the station thinned to radios and paperwork, Wesley took the long way through records. If doubt is loud, evidence must be specific. Rex's military file was a geography of dust and valor. Convoy saves, perimeters held, a pair of amber eyes and goggles beside a man whose grin never quite obeyed regulations. Sergeant Declan Reed, posthumous commendation. Folded flag, a letter filed under unable to deliver. Behind the yellowed mission logs, something slid free, a photograph curled by time. Declan kneeling beside a younger Rex, a woman with tired joy in her face, a toddler with a sparkle that made everything else brighter. On the back, in neat block letters, Rex, Daddy's brave partner. Love, Mila. Wesley's breath stalled. He held the proof like you hold a sparrow. Firm enough not to lose it, gentle enough not to break it. He found Savannah near the vending machines, hands wrapped around a paper cup she'd forgotten to drink. Mrs. Mitchell, did your husband... She nodded before he finished. Declan Reed. We kept my name for Mila. It was safer, simpler. The kind of history you fold and tuck away to keep living. Wesley held out the picture. Savannah's fingers trembled as if the paper were hot. He remembered us, she whispered. All this time. Wesley looked down the hall, where Mila's laugh bounced like a small bell. In the glass beyond, a dog silhouette waited, ears forward, not at attention, at home. The room where decisions happen is always too bright. Rivera stood at the head of the table. Powell and Hughes took seats that squeaked. Wesley placed the photo, the clips, the notes. He made the case. Trauma pattern, non-reactive posture around the child. Incremental compliance. A bond rooted in memory, not novelty. He didn't say family. Cops don't base policy on poetry. But the word hung in the air anyway. Rivera steepled his fingers. If this goes wrong and a child is hurt, we will not have a precinct to come back to. If it goes right, we might be witnesses to something we cannot manufacture. He turned to the glass. On the other side, Rex had settled, head high, eyes steady, watching the hallway where the little girl's curls usually appeared. One supervised meet. Rivera said at last, barrier between. No exceptions. Great, you own this. Powell Hughes, Overwatch. The clock didn't stop ticking. It only got louder. They staged it like a bomb defusal. Angles, distances, redundancies. Mila was told to be gentle, to listen, to stop if anyone said stop. She nodded solemnly like kids do when they understand adults are scared. Rex waited at the gate, not rattling it, not roaring, breathing like a runner at the blocks. When Mila stepped into view, his ears pricked. The scar above his right, I caught the light like a healed lightning strike. Wesley's palm hovered over the latch of the secondary barrier. Mila, he said softly, hold out your hand, but don't reach. Let him choose. She lifted her hand, fingers open, small and steady. Rex took one step, then another, then paused. Less than a foot away, the world narrowed to breath and heartbeat. No one spoke. You could hear the camera's red dot humming. Rex closed the distance and touched his nose to her palm through the mesh. The sound he made wasn't a growl. It was a low, broken whine pulled up from a place that still remembered lullabies in a war zone. Mila smiled without showing teeth, the way children smile at skittish animals. Hi, Rex. It's me. On the monitor, Powell whispered, Oh, my God! Hughes lowered the tranquilizer an inch he didn't know he'd lowered. Wesley felt his eyes burn and didn't look away. Rivera cleared his throat, the spell wobbling. Enough for today. Close it up. Wesley nodded and reached for the latch. That was when the building shook. Not with war, not with thunder. With a sudden grid surge that killed half the lights and rebooted the security locks in a chorus of clicks. For one sharp second, the inner gate slipped. Metal kissed metal. The barrier that kept the untouchable from the world stuttered and began to slide. Wesley lunged for the manual bar. Powell grabbed the override. Hughes brought the trank back up. On the other side, Mila didn't scream. She just looked at the dog who had already chosen her once. Rex stood perfectly still. No snarl, no spring. Eyes on the child, tail barely moving like a metronome set to hope. The gate kept sliding, inch by inch, the echo of metal vibrating to the hall like a countdown to fate. Powell's finger trembled on the override. Hughes' knuckles whitened around the tranquilizer. Wesley's heart hammered in his throat. And yet, in the middle of that rising panic, Rex didn't move. He stood perfectly still. No growl, no snarl. His eyes locked only on the little girl who had once reached through his cage and called him good. For one breathless moment, everyone wondered the same thing. Would this end in trust or tragedy? The metal gate stopped halfway, creaking under its own weight, and the entire precinct held its breath. Wesley's hand hovered over the control switch, his heartbeat pounding louder than the rain outside. Captain Rivera's voice broke through the tension. Lock it down now. But before anyone could react, a small sound carried through the air, soft, gentle, impossibly calm. "It's okay, Rex," whispered Mila. The words were small, but they sliced through panic like light through fog. Rex froze. That voice, the pitch, the warmth, echoed somewhere deep in his fractured memory. He blinked once, then twice. His muscles loosened, and the growl in his chest dissolved into a low, uncertain whine. Wesley lowered his hand. Powell whispered, "Is this really happening?" No one answered. They just watched. Mila crouched near the half-open barrier, curls bouncing slightly as she tilted her head. "You're not bad," she said softly. "You're just scared, huh?" The words landed like a forgotten command. Rex's tail twitched once. His nose flared, catching the faint scent of crayons and rainwater. Something innocent. Something home. He took a step forward, careful, slow, measured. Savannah's voice cracked behind the glass. "Mila, sweetheart, come back." But Mila didn't move. She gently set her teddy bear on the floor, pushing it closer with her tiny hand. "Look," she whispered. "He's nice, too." Rex's head lowered. His ears flicked. He stared at the bear, then at her. The whole room fell into the rhythm of his breathing. Deep, uneven, alive. Then, to everyone's disbelief, Rex stepped closer until the cold air between them disappeared. He pressed his nose gently against the steel barrier, meeting the little girl's hand through it. A hush swept through the station. Hughes lowered his tranquilizer completely. Powell's eyes glistened. Captain Rivera exhaled for the first time in a minute that felt like forever. For the first time in years, Rex wasn't a weapon. He was just a dog, broken, trembling. But remember what peace felt like. That night, the precinct replayed the security footage like it was a miracle caught on tape. Wesley stood in the darkened observation room, watching frame by frame. The touch, the stillness, the dog's eyes softening. He rewound again, pausing right when Rex pressed his muzzle to the child's hand. There, in a corner of the frame, a reflection caught the light. The old tag on Rex's collar. Wesley zoomed in, and the name engraved beneath the scratches came into focus. Sergeant Declan Reed. He sank into the chair, realization washing over him. The girl, the dog, the connection that made no sense, made all the sense in the world. Morning came with whispers spreading faster than coffee. Officers traded theories in hushed tones. She's his old handler's daughter. No way. Watch the footage yourself. When Savannah and Mila returned later that day, the entire team watched through the observation window. Rex perked up the instant the girl's laughter reached him. He padded forward, tail giving a single cautious wag. "Hi, Rex," Mila said brightly. Remember me? He did. Everyone could see it. The way his head tilted. The low rumble of joy in his throat. The way he waited for her hand again. And when she reached through, this time he leaned into her touch. That afternoon, Captain Rivera called a quiet meeting. He stood by the glass, arms folded, eyes on the pair inside. "Gentlemen, you are witnessing something I cannot explain with procedure," he said. "But I can tell you this. What's happening in that kennel is more powerful than anything a training manual could teach." Wesley nodded. "He's remembering love, sir, and she's reminding him why it matters." Rivera's gaze softened. "Let her visit. Supervise. Every day. Until we know what this means." And so began the week that would rewrite Riverdale's history. Each afternoon, Mila arrived carrying drawings she made at home, bright suns, stick figures, a brown and black dog with a crooked smile. She taped them to glass while Rex watched, ears forward, tail wagging slow and steady. He'd sit quietly as she talked about her day, school cartoons, her dad's old police badge she kept on her dresser. Sometimes she'd hold it up to the light, and Rex would stare at it, as if recognizing the glint of a promise made long ago. Savannah often stood behind her, eyes wet but proud. Every handler who passed paused, whispered, or smiled. Fear had turned to awe and awe into respect. The untouchable K9 was no longer feared. He was healing, and the little girl in the pink dress was his medicine. But healing never comes without a test. Outside, November storms began to gather, low and heavy over Riverdale. The air smelled of rain and static. That night, Wesley checked the locks twice before heading out. Rex was calm, lying near the bars, eyes half closed, breathing slow. It was peace, the fragile kind. He didn't know that before the next sunrise, that peace would shatter, and Riverdale would remember what true courage looked like. By the third week, the precinct's rhythm had changed. Where once men walked wide around the K9 wing, they now slowed near it, pretending to pass by, pretending not to smile. Through the glass, Rex sat upright, ears perked, tail tapping a steady beat while Mila read a children's book aloud, one finger tracing the lines. Her voice rose and fell like the softest command. The brave dog didn't give up because he knew someone still needed him. Rex tilted his head at the sound of brave. Wesley saw it, the micro flick of recognition in the animal's eyes. He whispered to Rivera beside him. He knows that word. Rivera folded his arms. Then let's teach him a few more. Training resumed slowly. At Mila's visits, Wesley layered basic orders between her laughter. Sit, stay, heel. No harsh tone, no gesture sharper than a smile. Rex obeyed 3 out of 5, then 4 out of 5, and each small victory rippled through the station like breaking news. Hughes started bringing treats. Powell filmed clips on her phone for records, but everyone knew she just wanted proof that miracles could look like this. When Mila's school held a Heroes Day, she asked to bring Rex's picture. She told her classmates, "This is my dad's partner. He got sad for a long time, but he's brave again now." That night, Savannah found a drawing folded in Mila's backpack. She looked at it for a long while, 2 figures and a dog under a giant yellow sun, and whispered to the quiet apartment, "You'd be proud, Declan." She found him. The next afternoon, the precinct gathered for a test. Rivera stood behind the reinforced glass, stopwatch in hand. Wesley opened the inner door. Mila stood beside him, hand lightly resting on his sleeve. "Ready, sweetheart?" "Ready." Rex waited on the other side of the room, muscles coiled, gaze alert but calm. Wesley gave the signal. "Mila, call him." The girl's voice carried through the hall, small but sure. "Rex, come." For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then pause struck concrete. Rex ran, a blur of black and tan, every muscle alive. Officers gasped, some reaching instinctively for weapons, until Rex slid to a stop right in front of her and sat. Perfectly. The station erupted in cheers. Powell hooped. Rivera blinked twice, pretending not to smile. Mila clapped her hands. "Good boy." Rex barked once. Short, joyful, the sound of a heart remembering its language. Emotional pocket. The applause faded to quiet. Mila crouched and pressed her forehead gently to his muzzle. The dog closed his eyes. For a few long seconds, time slowed. The hum of the lights softened. The city noise outside drifted to silence. It was just a little girl and a soldier, both finally safe enough to breathe. When Rex exhaled, it sounded almost like a sigh of relief, like a ghost leaving a battlefield. That evening, rain began again, tapping the windows of the K-9 wing like fingers, keeping count. Wesley lingered by the glass, watching Rex sleep curled near the bars. The photo of Declan, now framed, sat on the wall beside the logbook. Two partners reunited by memory, their promise carried on by a child. Rivera joined him quietly. If this keeps up, we'll reinstate him for community duty. Therapy sessions, maybe school demos. Wesley nodded, eyes still on the sleeping dog. He's ready. Then, softer. But storms have a way of testing readiness. Outside, thunder rolled, far away yet deliberate. Mila had left her crayon drawings taped to the kennel door. Rex's ears twitched at the sound of rain, but he didn't panic this time. Instead, he lifted his head, stared at those bright scribbles of suns and smiles, and laid back down. The beast everyone once feared was gone. What remained was something gentler, stronger, reborn. But peace is never a permanent guest in Riverdale. By midnight, clouds swallowed the moon, the siren started, and the night that would change everything was on its way. The first crack of thunder came like a warning shot. Riverdale's power grid flickered, then failed. Rain slashed the streets. Wind screamed through alleys. Inside the precinct, backup lights glowed dull orange over empty desks. In the K-9 wing, Rex jerked awake. Lightning burned across the window. Thunder followed hard and close. His chest heaved. Memories detonated. Sand, fire, the blast, Declan's voice screaming his name. He paced faster, claws scraping metal. One loud crack of thunder hit too near. The cage latch, old and wet with rust, snapped. Rex lunged forward. Free. Alarm shrieked through the corridors. Wesley's voice at the radio. K-9 unit loose. All exits locked down now. But Rex was already gone, a streak of soaked fur disappearing into storm-soaked night. Across town, headlights cut through sheets of rain. Savannah Mitchell gripped the wheel, squinting through fog glass while Mila hummed softly beside her, clutching the worn teddy bear. The engine coughed once, twice, then died. "Oh, not now," Savannah muttered. She tried again, nothing. They were stranded near the East Bridge, rain hammering the windshield. Mila pressed her hand to the glass. "Mommy, look." A dark shape stood in the middle of the road, massive, drenched, eyes glowing amber in the lightning flash. "Rex." Savannah's breath caught. "Sweetheart, stay in the car." But Mila had already unbuckled her seatbelt. He's scared. The door swung open before Savannah could stop her. Cold rain swallowed the sound of her scream. Mila ran barefoot through puddles, calling into the night. "Rex, come back." The dog barked once, sharp, urgent, then turned toward the woods. He stopped, looked back, barked again. It wasn't a growl. It was a command. "Follow." Mila hesitated, heart pounding. Then she nodded, as if she understood. Savannah stumbled after her, shouting her name. Wesley's cruiser hit the radio burst. "Dispatch! I've got a missing child near the East Bridge. Possible contact with K-9 Rex. Rolling now." He slammed the siren on and pushed the accelerator until the tires sliced the floodwater. In the woods, the world was a blur of mud and thunder. Branches whipped. Lightning carved the sky into white knives. Mila slipped, fell, pushed herself up again, shouting through sobs. "Rex!" A bark answered, closer this time. She followed the sound to a clearing where a giant tree leaned, roots torn loose by the wind. Beneath it stood Rex, chest heaving, eyes fixed on her. For a heartbeat, relief. Then she heard it. The groan of wood ready to fall. Rex barked louder. She turned and the ground gave way. The mud slid under her feet. She screamed as the slope broke, pulling her downward toward a ravine below. Rex launched himself forward. Teeth clamped onto the back of her jacket. His paws dug deep, claws scraping rock. The weight dragged him toward the edge, but he held. Rain poured into his eyes. Lightning flashed. The tree cracked like gunfire. "Hold on, boy." Mila gasped, gripping his collar. Rex growled, not anger, effort, and pulled. Muscles trembled. One final jerk, one desperate bark, and he yanked her free just as a tree crashed behind them, exploding into splinters. Both collapsed in the mud, soaked, shaking alive. Moments later, red and blue lights bled through the trees. Wesley's voice cut through the storm. "Mila! Rex!" He found them side by side. The girl curled against the dog's chest, Rex standing guard despite the gash bleeding along his flank. Wesley knelt, pulling Mila into his arms. "You're safe now. You're safe." Then his eyes met Rex's. The dog swayed on his paws, blood mixing with rain, and still he didn't step back. He'd saved her. Again. Wesley's throat closed. "Good boy," he whispered. "Hold on, partner." Rex's tail flicked once, weak but sure, before he collapsed into the mud. Sirens drew closer. Savannah stumbled into the clearing, fell to her knees beside her daughter, sobbing with relief. Mila's small hands clutched Rex's fur. "Don't sleep, Rex. You promised you wouldn't leave me." The rain eased, thunder rolling farther away. But under the flashing lights, one truth shone brighter than fear. The beast everyone feared had become the hero Riverdale would never forget. Rain softened to drizzle as emergency lights painted the soaked clearing red. The storm had moved on, but its echo lingered in the shattered branches, in the heavy breaths of everyone who'd run to the dark to save one dog and one child. Officer Wesley Gray carried Rex in both arms, the animal's weight pressing against his chest. Blood seeped through his sleeve, warm and slick. "Hang on, buddy," he whispered, voice cracking. "You're not dying in the mud after this." Mila clung to her mother's coat, following close behind as paramedics cleared a path. Sirens blazed once more, and the convoy sped to the flooded streets toward the emergency veterinary wing attached to the Riverdale shelter. Inside, fluorescent lights replaced the storm's fury. The vet team worked in silence, hands steady, movement sure. Rex lay motionless under the harsh light, his chest rising shallowly. Mila stood behind the glass, her small fingers leaving fog prints on the window. "Mommy," she whispered, "he's going to be okay, right?" Savannah knelt beside her, brushing damp curls from her forehead. "He's strong, sweetheart. He saved you. He'll fight for you, too." But even she couldn't hide the tremor in her voice. Wesley leaned against the wall, head bowed, uniform drenched. Every sound inside the room felt louder. The beeping of monitors, the vet's clipped commands, the suction tubes hiss. Then silence. One vet turned toward the observation window. "We're stabilizing him," she said softly. "He's lost a lot of blood, but he's still fighting." The words landed like a breath the room didn't realize it was holding. Hours passed. The rain stopped completely, leaving a pale dawn over Riverdale. Rex lay under a thin blanket, for tubes trailing from his paw. His coat had been cleaned, his wound stitched, his breathing even again. Mila crept closer when they allowed her inside. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and wet fur. Machines hummed quietly. She touched the edge of the table where Rex lay and whispered, "Hey, boy, it's me." The dog's ear twitched. Then, slowly, his eyes opened, hazy at first, then clear. When he saw her, his tail thumped weakly against the metal tray. "See, Mommy?" Mila smiled through tears. "I told you he'd remember." Wesley turned away, blinking hard. Even Captain Rivera, who'd come to check on them, cleared his throat before speaking. "The city owes that dog more than a medal," he said quietly. "We owe him a new story." As the morning light filled the room, Rex shifted his head toward Mila's hand. She leaned close, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck. "You came back," she whispered. He exhaled through his nose, pressing his head against her shoulder, the same gesture he used to give Declan after a long patrol. Savannah covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. Wesley placed a hand on her shoulder. "He never forgot you," he said. "He just needed to find his family again." Later, the precinct gathered in quiet reverence as news spread across Riverdale. Headlines hit social media. "Feared K-9 becomes hero in child rescue." Rex, the dog who remembered. Videos of the storm footage looped on every local channel. Outside the hospital, candles appeared, small flames left by strangers who'd read about courage, loyalty, and a second chance. Children drew chalk hearts on the sidewalk with Rex's name inside them. That night, the city slept under clear skies for the first time in weeks. Inside the recovery room, Mila stayed curled in a chair beside Rex's bed, her tiny hand resting on his paw. Every rise and fall of his breathing matched hers. Wesley stood at the door, watching. "If there's any justice in this world," he murmured, "that Bond deserves to be remembered." Outside, lightning flickered once far in the distance, quiet now, harmless. Rex stirred, eyes half open, gaze fixed on a little girl who had saved his soul as surely as he'd saved her life. He was no longer the beast. He was the proof that loyalty, even broken, can learn to love again. Winter arrived quietly that year. Snow drifted down over Riverdale City, softening the skyline, turning the police courtyard into a field of white. The same ground that once echoed with sirens and fear now rang with applause. Officers lined both sides of the courtyard, badges gleaming. At the center stood Rex, coat shining, eyes bright. Beside him, in her pink dress and wool scarf, Mila Mitchell grinned wide enough to light the gray morning. Captain Rivera stepped forward, holding a small silver badge shaped like a shield. "Today," he said, voice steady, "we honor not just a service dog, but a soldier who reminded us what loyalty means. For bravery beyond duty and for saving a child's life, we name Rex an honorary officer of the Riverdale Police Department." Applause broke through the cold air. Cameras clicked. Mila clapped the loudest, cheeks flushed red from the cold. "That's my Rex," she shouted. Rex tilted his head, tail wagging once, then stood taller, chest out, as Rivera fastened the medal to his collar. In that moment, the entire precinct seemed to breathe again. Wesley smiled quietly at Savannah. "Looks like he's finally home." She nodded, eyes glistening. Maybe he never left. Maybe he was just waiting for us to find him. Mila ran up and threw her arms around Rex's neck. Snowflakes landed on his fur like tiny medals. He leaned into her hug, a gentle rumble of contentment rising from his chest. As the crowd began to disperse, the city's news drones hovered overhead, broadcasting live to thousands of screens. Viewers watched the story of a dog once feared, now celebrated. Parents showed their children. Veterans saluted. Even the officers who once called him dangerous wiped their eyes discreetly. In the silence after the applause, Mila whispered to her mother, "Daddy would have been proud, right?" Savannah smiled through tears. He'd say the same thing Rex just proved. Heroes never really leave. They live on in love. That evening, golden light filled the station. Rex lay beside Mila on the steps, both watching the sun sink behind the snowy rooftops. The silver badge on his collar caught the fading light, gleaming like a promise. Wesley leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, voice soft. For years he carried ghosts, but look at him now. He's carried them home. Mila turned, her curls glowing in the sunset. "No, Officer Wesley," she said with a proud smile. "He carried us." Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If this story moved you, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, so you never miss another pulse-pounding cinematic tale from Black Rise. Here's a quick question for you. Would you risk everything to save the one who once saved you? Because sometimes the bravest rescues don't start with courage. They start with a single bark.